Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Greetings, grand final winners, losers, and members of the peripheral throng. Come one, come all, because we all wear the same colours here at Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson, now that it's the off-season at least. And here at Tech Talk, well, it's never actually the off-season for us. No, we just keep going and going and going. And speaking of going and going and going, welcome to the mic, the bloke with more energy than the Energizer Bunny. Welcome, Matthew Dickerson.
Well, there is something that slows me up, James.
I
do like to go and go and go, but magpies are slowing me up at the moment.
Oh, don't they slow everyone up?
They do. And we've had a discussion off air about how you might make those magpies maybe leave you alone.
I remember that conversation, yep.
And I have this wonderful hypothesis that says that they get to know you. They know that you didn't steal their babies last time or the last 10 times or the last 20 times.
They don't care.
That hasn't worked out so well for me. So you've given me the idea of a stare-off.
Yes, I did. I reckon if you stand your ground, let them know who's boss, but you got to stop, because if you're moving, I reckon that they take that as I'm all over this guy. I've got him.
So I've tried your experiment over the last couple of weeks since we chatted about that.
Right.
And I've actually stopped, whether I've been out for a run or out for a bike ride, and you can see it coming in on the shadow, so you kind of know that it's there, and someone will wave their hand above your helmet or whatever, but I'm going to go, no, I'm going to try James's hypothesis here. I'm going to stop. So I've stopped my bike and I've turned around, which you've got to be careful when you do that.
Yeah.
Because they might get you in the eye.
Beak in the nose, yeah.
That's right. So I've turned around and they've gone off. So I've tried to get them when they're maybe 4 or 5 metres away, stop, turn around and look at them, and they swerve off.
Are you telling me that I was right?
You were absolutely right, but I want it to be a longer term measure, because then I've said, okay, I'll stare at him for a little while, him or her. Stare, right, everything's okay, get back on the bike. As soon as you get back on the bike, face the other way, he comes again. Yeah. So you got to stop and stare. So it's hard to make progress when you're standing to the side of your bike, staring down the magpie. And then I thought, well, maybe if I tell this guy that I'm okay and just have a bit of a chat to him, that didn't go so well. He seemed to just still turn around, get in the back of the bike, and away he went. So then I tried it when I was running, and I thought I'll just see what happens here with the running, because I can run backwards. So hard to ride the bike backwards, but I can run backwards. So
easy to crash into stuff when you're running backwards.
that does happen, but I thought I'd just check first. So done the stare off, he stayed away from me. Then I kept staying backwards and just doing a slow jog.
You're a very bold man.
But he stayed in the tree, but what he'd then do, I'm assuming it's a he for the moment, what he'd then do is, as I'd get past the next tree, he'd come down. I'm thinking, it's not working, but he'd just swoop up to the next tree. So he's always keeping you just one dive away, but always letting you stay as you were.
Can I share with you? I've had an identical experience running backwards and everything, and he just went from light pole to light pole.
Yeah.
And he just watched me the whole
time. There are
time.
people who have pictures of eyes on the back of their helmet.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, maybe, because I thought the idea was to attack the eyes. But when I'm looking at him, I must have got sunglasses on, but when I'm staring the magpie down, he didn't want to come and attack. So the eyes on the back of the helmet, maybe that's not as bad, because people have used cable ties. They've used tree branches. I've seen that.
Do the cable ties work?
I don't think so. I think they're clever enough to get around them. I've seen people use streamers on their helmet. I did see someone that had a picture of a cat on their helmet, and I went, that's not bad, because presumably they're trying to protect their babies, and a cat.
Hopefully an angry cat with claws out too.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And so maybe, but then I thought, hold on, but if the cat is going to attack their babies, maybe they will attack the helmet even more, because this cat's going to come after them. So I haven't seen any of those really work that successfully, but the stare down does. And I'm not sure.
You're certainly giving them the benefit of the doubt and the friendship, surely you know I'm not a threat kind of thing.
I did give them some friendly eyes. Does that help? But no, I did try this over a couple of weeks before telling you about it, because I wanted to try some different ideas. And then the next time.
Thank you for your science.
That's right. But the next time I thought I'd go past, I thought, well, he might remember me. I've got the same colour helmet. I've got the same. I wear a buff around my neck. I wear the same colour buff, same cycling shirt. But
controlling variables, I see. This is great.
But still, if I didn't stare down, he would come and attack my helmet still. So, and I actually said, don't you remember from yesterday? Don't you remember that yesterday I stared at you and you stopped?
Magpies are just nasty. They just have a nasty streak.
I know that's your hypothesis.
August, September, October, they just go nasty.
And I'm tending to agree with you now. So the stare down can be effective, but it's a bit clumsy to do it. It's not that practical to do it. So not sure the relation to technical or tech talk here, but maybe the eyes on the back, maybe that's on being technical there. There's a technical solution. Maybe there is a tech solution out there. Anyone that knows a tech solution to keep magpies away from you, please let me know about it. I want to solve the problem with technology.
There's got to be some high-pitched noise thing or something.
Something. And I don't want the technology to be someone that uses a bit of lead coming out of a gun to take care of the magpie. I'm not interested in doing that. I just want some other technology that says stay away from me.
We need a harmless one for both parties.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, let's start the show today with a story for the renovators among us. People like having a window in their front door, and that's fair enough. Entryways and hallways can be dark and dingy, and the extra natural light can really lift a living space. And sometimes you just want to see who's at the front door. But sometimes you don't want the people outside to know whether or not you're home. Sometimes that little bit of mystery means a whole lot of extra security. So imagine if you could choose between sometimes clear glass and sometimes frosted glass on your front door. Well, then you'd have the freedom to check out the front garden, but also to strut around in the nude in your own home without the worry of being surprised by people who just want to chat about the afterlife. Matt, I am into this, and it's not just for the nudity.
Or the knocking on the door and talking about the afterlife. I want to first of all start off with a story to tell people what a terrible parent I am.
Oh, because confession time.
Confession time. In the Blue Mountains, there is a wonderful cable car called the Scenic Skyway.
It's awesome.
Awesome. I think it might be the largest or longest cable car ride in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, shout out to the guys who run it. It's a fantastic tourist enterprise.
Yeah, that's right. And biggest or best in the Southern Hemisphere basically means Australia. Probably to New Zealand there. But it's 720 metres long. And as you go across this cable car, you go across the Jemison Valley, which is about a 270 metre drop from the cable car to the bottom of the valley. So a long way. We took our family and we heard about this wonderful new cable car that had opened up. Well, sorry, the cable car had been there for a long time, but a new electro-glass floor that could change from transparent to opaque. All right. And I went, that sounds pretty cool. So one day we're going through with the family and I said we should stop at the Blue Mountains and we'll look at this cool new cable car function or facility. We got in and the kids didn't know about this particular floor. So when you get in, the floor is opaque. It just looks like a normal white floor. And so I said to one of my kids, in fact, my youngest child, please lay down on the floor, just face down on the floor as we go. And why? Oh, just trust me, I'm your father.
I want to have a look out the window.
Yeah, so she did as she was instructed by her father and laid down flat on the floor. And as you move out across the Jemison Valley, they flick a switch and it goes from opaque to transparent. Wow. So you can imagine staring down at the floor, thinking you're staring down at whiteness, and then you're staring down at a 270 metre drop. Yeah. Well, my daughter burst into tears.
Oh, yeah, you're a good parent.
Jumped into my lap, absolutely
on so many levels,
terrified. And I've gone, maybe that wasn't such a good idea for my darling daughter. But I was impressed with how they changed it from being opaque to transparent.
Technology.
That was pretty cool. Now, that was in a cable car. Obviously, I hope a lot of money was spent on that because it was the floor of the cable car. So obviously you hope they spent a lot of money on getting that right. But you don't expect to spend that kind of money around the house. But now, and at the moment, only out of Home Depot in the US, there's a smart glass door, which exactly as you said, can change with a very easy process from opaque to transparent. Now, you can do it with an app on your phone. You can do it with your smart home device. Basically, a quick instruction, and that will change almost instantly.
So if you do have to bolt down the hall in the nude, you don't have to reach for a switch. You've just got your phone with you.
You've got your phone with you, or you can talk to your smart home device. Yep. If it's whatever it is, a Google Home device or an Amazon, Alexa, whatever, you just say, Alexa, whatever your command is, change the front door.
No worries about frightening the neighbours.
Absolutely right. And no worries about neighbours looking in and seeing what you're up to at night time. You might want to see the sun during the day and then have it not come in or not your light from inside going out.
So many reasons.
And what I really like about it is it uses very minimal amount of power because it only uses power when it changes state from transparent to opaque. Not really changing state, I suppose, but changing its function from transparent to opaque. So it can run on battery.
So if you're showing off to your guests, then that's when it's going to really
That's it, when you're flicking back and forth. But it's not using any power to maintain whether it be transparent or opaque. So I thought that was pretty cool because I initially imagined when I was starting to look at this story, I initially imagined it would take power to keep it in one state or the other, but it only needs power to change state. But after that, it's nothing. So it can run on batteries. It can plug in with USB-C. Even if you run on a couple of batteries, it'll last for a couple of months for normal usage, changing on a semi-regular basis. You can schedule it to go each night time. So during the day, great, I can look out and see the wonderful outside world. At night time, when you might be having a shower or maybe walking around the nude, then you can change it automatically. So I thought that was pretty cool, but I can see not just the front door. And the prices weren't too bad. You're paying around $1,200 to say $1,500, depending on how big a piece of glass is in the front door. But why not in the rest of your house? Front door today, think about the amount of curtains or some type of shade that you have.
That was the question I had. Could you just put them on the windows all around the house?
Why not? And it would just come down to the cost and the size of those windows. So if you've got various windows, now you might just have your front-facing windows. You don't mind the back windows being open all the time, but the ones that might face out on the street or the footpath, just have it set up on those.
Yeah,
so,
I was initially thinking some people have got a great view out the front of the house, and sometimes you want to sit there and look out at the view, and sometimes you want a bit more privacy.
Yeah, so having that on a whole range of windows. Now, at the moment, they're not selling the glass where it's just cut to any size. They're saying, here's door 1 or door 2 or door 3.
But it's only a matter of time.
Only a matter of time, because if the technology has gone from a cable car in the Blue Mountains to a front door of your house, then surely the next easy step is any glass. And I love the idea of this because I just find them a bit cumbersome when you've got curtains, whether it be automated curtains or blinds or manual curtains or blinds. I just find all that a bit clumsy.
Yeah.
Whereas having something we can just change from one to the other, I think that's pretty cool.
Well, anytime we've had curtains with view or otherwise, they've always just stayed open. Yeah,
that's right. It's too much hassle. Unless you go for automated ones, it's just too much of a hassle to go and be bothered to change them. So, yeah, I actually love the idea, and I can hardly wait till we see it on any piece of glass. You just go and get a piece of glass, cut to size, and then have it hooked up, and away you go.
Before the change of the US government back in 2020, I didn't even know the meaning of the term gaslighting. But now in the age of AI and scamming, we live in a constant state of questioning what is real and what is a myth. Matt, when AI has the capacity to alter a photo or video, our own memories and even fact-checking become entirely questionable.
There's a great psych experiment that was done decades ago, and I remember reading about it, and I thought, this is really clever. They were manipulating people's memories. They did the classic psych experiment at uni, which I'm sure you remember from uni days, where they would say, we'll pay you $20 to come along and be a part of an experiment.
Yeah.
They just needed people, a lot of people, to be part of something. So you'd go along, you didn't know what you're in for, and you'd go along and join in. And this particular one, they showed pictures of a Warner Brothers example. So here you are at Warner Brothers, and you had a character that wasn't at Warner Brothers, a character that was a Disneyland character, for example. So they'd show them this, and they'd show them a whole range of photos, and then they'd go and take them off to some other trivial task. Then they come back and they'd say, oh, have you been to Warner Brothers? And if you said yes, they'd say, oh, good, let's ask some more questions. And then they'd start asking questions. Do you remember when you saw, and they'd name a character that was only at Disneyland? Oh, yeah, no, I remember that. No, it was great. I remember that character. And so they were actually planting memory into your memory. So you weren't really remembering. You remembered you went to Warner Brothers, or they do the same with Disneyland. They take a Warner Brothers character, say Bugs Bunny, and they'd say, have you been to Disneyland? And again, they do the same thing in the opposite direction. And been to Disneyland, yeah, I've done that. You remember seeing Bugs Bunny? Oh, yeah, it was great seeing Bugs Bunny there at Disneyland. No.
Playing with my head, I don't like it at all.
That's exactly right. So that's one from many years ago, many years ago.
Yeah, right.
And it's a well-known experiment about manipulating memory. And we've talked about it before. You and I can sit there and watch something that happens. It might be a game of footy, or it might be an incident, an accident, whatever it might be. And then you and I are asked to write down what we saw, and you'll read the two versions. You'll say, were you talking about the same event?
Yeah.
The things you remember.
I've done it with siblings and remembering things from the past.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
I know you told a story of a similar sort of thing that was a famous story in your family. So the way we remember things can be very different.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So now some researchers at MIT have gone further to say, imagine if you want to manipulate memory using some AI edited photos. So they had 24 original photos, had a bunch of participants again, maybe some uni students again, same concept, 24 original photos where they were shown things, and they had basically time to absorb those photos. Then they gave them an unrelated task. Then they came back and they showed 4 different groups of photos, depending on, just the control, if you like, and then they went through that. And they added or removed certain things from these different photos.
Oh, dear.
Then started asking questions about it, and they found that you could basically plant whatever you wanted into someone's memory. So let's go away and ask some questions about those photos now. And the questions so closely matched what they'd seen, the manipulated version of what they'd seen, rather than the original versions of what they'd seen. So it's pretty easy in real terms to manipulate someone's memory.
Yeah.
And we used to say, believe half of what you hear or half what you read and nothing of what you hear. It used to be something that my dad used to say, when you hear a story, well, unless it's written down, unless you read that story, maybe then believe it, but if you just hear it, don't worry about it. Whereas now, watching videos, looking at photos, you used to be able to rely on that. Definitely, there's a photo, I know that's right. There's a video, I know that's right. You can't rely on that anymore, but then your memory of that can be manipulated because someone's planted those memories there.
So what you're telling me now, Matthew, is nothing is real. Don't trust anything at all, not even your own memory.
Yeah, basically.
Own experience.
Yep. And it gets scarier than that because you've got these really interesting tools now on your phone. So when you've got your Google phone or your Android phone or your Apple phone, you've got all these wonderful little tools that you can use to change a photo. So here's a photo I've taken,
that's right.
A lovely family photo. Oh, there's James, stuck his head in the background. You can remove James quite easily. So that's it, gone. But then I have a bit of a bust up with one of those people in the photo. Oh, I don't like my sister-in-law, ex-sister-in-law anymore. I'll remove her from the photo. Then someone sees that photo later. They go, that's that lovely family shot we took. Once that person's gone from there, no memory of that person being there. Yeah. And so we can manipulate things in so many ways. And being aided, not some highfalutin university experiment, just on your phone that you hold in your hand can be used to help change some of those things, change some of those memories. So what is real anymore, James?
That's right.
What is real?
Yeah, and next thing you know, it's going to be Ronald McDonald standing in the Nuremberg trial. I don't know why I think about this, but the Nuremberg rally, screaming at 20,000 people, the leader of the Nazi Party, all these historical things that are going to be absolutely, altered. Altered, that's
what
right. Is fact?
And it might be just a fun thing that someone creates a photo that's a bit of a joke or for some fun, but then someone else sees that and then it gets spread around via social media. Next thing you know, everyone thinks that was actually what happened at that particular time. So even videos, I used to think I could trust videos, but even videos are in a stage now where it's harder to pick a fake video. And then we remember that and we tell the story again and again and again.
And simply because we can, we're going to take that rising paranoia and crank it up to 11 on the dial right now. Now, we love our EVs here at Tech Talk. One of the reasons we love them is because even after the sale, they just get better and better with every software update. Your car improves even when it's just sitting in your garage. But all that requires a trust that the connectivity is productive and that the people with access to the data from your car are actually on your side. For a lot of people, that is a bridge too far, Matt.
Well, for people in the US, it's a bridge too far because they're now debating, or they might have even said, let's do it, where they don't want to ban Chinese manufactured vehicles from sale in the US based on the potential for some sort of cybersecurity espionage. That might be in controlling those cars. That might be in using them for surveillance. Now, before we go further, I want to say this is a bad rap that EVs are getting because it's not just an EV. Any modern car
of course,
can be connected. And many modern cars are connected.
Absolutely.
EVs, because they are very modern, most EVs that are coming out have got some form of connectedness to the outside world. So they're labelling it with EVs, but many cars out there are connected. So,
and for those of you who are into the deep state, then they're following you and they know exactly where you've been and where you're going and all that sort of stuff.
All of the above, correct. That's right. Now, so let's take EVs off the table. Let's just talk about connected cars. So the first thing is, can people look at what you're doing in your connected car? And the answer is absolutely. I can give my car to one of my children and say, there you go, now you're only going to that location, are you? Sure thing. And I can quite easily look at where that car is going. But I've got the password, I've got permission to do that, and that seems reasonable. But if I can see it, then whoever controls that software could see it. So it's not just a foreign state.
But there are cameras inside the car looking at the occupants as well.
Absolutely. So you've got cameras inside and cameras outside. So that car could be used. That could be parked somewhere, and I could actually look at the cameras on that car and see, you told me you're going down to place A. Why is the car parked at place B? I can see the location and I can see around the car there's a party going on there. You didn't tell me about that.
How are your worry levels going, folks, out there?
Now, again, that's because it's my car and I have the passwords for it.
Yeah.
But someone who is the manufacturer of that car, someone could have access to that information as well. They've designed the software. It's not very hard for them to say, we'll have a backdoor into that. Now, the manufacturers would say we don't have that level of exposure because you give a backdoor for good people. Well, bad people can use the backdoor as well. So many of the manufacturers will say, well, we're not giving any backdoors, so only that person could use it. But they've written the code.
Yeah.
If you've written the code, you know there's some way to get in if you really needed to. Now, that's one level of potential paranoia. But then when it comes to a country like China, people love to have their conspiracies about China. And let's face it, the government could probably go to a manufacturer and say, we would like to have a look at this information here. Not can we, it's just we would like to do that. That's right, we will. Which is why the US has said, well, we're going to ban Chinese manufactured cars. Now, they've talked about that in Australia as well. Should we be doing the same thing here? And you just think about all the data that's collected. So you've got GPS data, you've got driving habits, you've got, as you say, cameras inside, in-car conversations, you've got voice controls telling it what to do. I actually went back and had a look. I was fascinated to see what data was collected. I went back and took a snapshot from one of my cars to see what information was available, again, in my account on my car, and it had how far the accelerator was depressed, what the steering angle was doing, the speed of the car. So a whole range of bits of information that might be interesting for someone, might be not. Now, I started thinking more about it. I thought, okay, China decides they want to attack Australia tomorrow. Is their plan to stop every car on a freeway so we have a traffic jam? Is that the way they're going to bring Australia to its knees, or are they going to launch some missiles at Australia? And if it was me, I want to have the maximum impact, I'd probably just launch some missiles. That's easier, surely, than going along and saying, of all the cars out there, how many are Chinese-owned? And you'd have a very small percentage of Chinese-owned vehicles or Chinese-manufactured, and then we're going to disable those, and that'll get them. That'll cause chaos on the freeways, and it would. There'd be stopped cars along the freeway, or there would be cars that maybe take a left turn when they're not meant to, and they drive into a wall, so you have lots of accidents around. But I'm not sure if that will cripple an entire nation.
Yeah, but I don't know, disruption and interference just it creates other problems that you can't. They're unpredictable, and I guess if you're isolated from that, then the unpredictability is the benefit. Just
I'm sure it would be a pain. I'm sure it would be unpleasant. But I don't know if it would bring our entire economy to its knees. And then they hold Australia to ransom and say you need to pay this amount of money, or we would just like a bit of your land because we've run out of land for our people to live, all sorts of things. But I just don't know. It's the number one area that will be attacked. But also, I suppose, is banning a manufacturer, any single manufacturer or any single country that manufactures, is banning the solution? Because I started to think more about it and went, well, there are so many things that you would probably attack before cars. So the power grid, maybe, telecommunications, maybe there are other things that you could attack that would have more of an impact on the nation rather than just cars. So probably with all of that in mind, I actually started thinking maybe just spending a lot of money on our digital infrastructure security probably would make more sense than worrying about banning Chinese manufactured cars. Because it could be one day Elon Musk decides to go cray-cray. Yeah. And he might just say every Tesla on the road, I want to do something with it, or whatever. I mean, there's so many different scenarios.
The makings of a Bond film here.
Oh, absolutely. With Elon Musk stroking a cat sitting on his lap. So I suppose for these people out there that are worried about it, it is possible. And it's not just a Chinese manufactured car. It's possible with any connected car, anything that's connected to the outside world.
ICE.
In your household, the things that connect, everything that's connected to the outside world, which is basically everything now, is possible to have someone come along and manipulate it.
It's the way we live.
It's the way we live, unfortunately. So should we lose sleep over it? Probably not.
Probably not.
We're hoping that our government's doing something about the protection of our residents, but is that wishful thinking? Who knows?
Smart glasses seem to have been gathering a bit of steam recently. From the initial flop in the mid-2000s, then a second run by Google with their Google goggles, I think they were Google glasses, in 2013. and it had a belly flop. Lessons have been learned, and smart glasses may have finally found some traction thanks to some 2020's initiative. Matt, hands-free tech is moving from being a 21st century gimmick.
I think they're going to happen one day. You remember the Google glasses you talked about, and people were nicknamed glass holes that used to walk around in them because they were a bit strange. But I think at some point in time we will have some sort of smart glasses. Now, Meta, or Facebook if you want to prefer to call it Facebook, have come out with their first pair of augmented reality glasses. Now, you can't buy them yet. They're still in testing, but they're out there. They're being used by people as we speak. Now, these glasses can display messages on the inside of the glass. So as you're looking at them, they can do video calls. They can do so basically you could be doing a video conference call without having a computer in front of you. You're looking at the glasses as such. You can watch YouTube videos. All of these things pop up within your field of vision. Obviously very clever because it's probably hard for us to focus on something that's very small distance away from our eye. So they've got to be clever in the way they present that information. They've got 7 cameras on them. They've got 2 of those cameras that will track eye movements. You can use hand gestures to change things. And they don't look too bad. They look like someone that's got a thick pair of glasses with thick arms. You've got a fair bit of technology built into them, so they've got to have space for that technology and the battery as well. So the sides of the arms are thick enough to contain a battery and information there or technology there. So they don't look too bad. What do people think about it? Do they think it'll be pretty cool to use that and be able to access information, look into, you're on a tourist process and you look out there and you see a building and you just say to your glasses, what is that building? And it gives you the information history there in audio format or showing up on screen. The augmented reality part of it makes me interested because I could look at things that would tell me information as I'm looking at those things.
Just being able to see someone and the person looks really familiar. How do I know them? How do I know them?
I would love that. I would love that. Is there a good enough database out there of faces and names?
Need maybe your list of Facebook friends or whatever. Yeah.
Well, given the fact that it's Facebook making this, that's the first place that I'll be thinking of there. So I love that idea because I talk to lots of people that I should know, but maybe I don't always know them as well as I should. So that sort of thing. I can imagine you'd be at a Formula One race and you're looking there and it could tell you information on the drivers as they're driving past. It could track those different cars. So a whole range of different things. So I do think there is a place for these at some stage. A few companies, big companies, Google, Meta, are having a bit of a crack at these type of glasses. It just needs, I suppose, someone to come out and say, we've nailed it, and then they'll take off, I think. I think it'll be a really big hit. But we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there slowly.
One rule of progress is that as time rolls on, technology becomes smaller and cheaper and more capable. Now, satellites developed in the 70s, 80s and 90s needed to be really hefty to make them worthwhile. Once placed in orbit, upgrades to existing satellites are just impractical. So if satellites have a practical lifespan, it makes sense to downsize them and make them cheaper. Matt, you're going to introduce us to the CubeSat.
The CubeSat, I do love this concept.
It's a cute name, isn't it?
It is a cute name, and we used to think of satellites, and we probably still do think of satellites as something that's big and expensive. Barrel-shaped, that's right, and it goes off on a rocket and gets set up into orbit, and then that's it. It sits there for a long time, and it's got some solar panels, and it's getting some extra power from that, and it does its job.
It also makes beeping noises,
of course.
If you believe in Hollywood, yeah.
Compulsory, yeah, that's right. Now, that's all fine, but we're finding that there are times we might want to do other work, other research, gather other information, whatever it might be, and we figure we don't need that for a long period of time, or we don't want to spend the money on this huge big satellite. So CubeSats are the answer. So they're miniature satellites, and they get launched a lot at a time, and they're quite cheap. So when I say quite cheap, maybe $16,000, which you could spend that money on something else.
Several millions as, yeah.
Yeah, but $16,000 to me seems like a fairly cheap price to have something that does some sort of scientific experiment, some sort of photography, some sort of monitoring, whatever it might be. And then to launch them, you still think, well, it's expensive because SpaceX, Elon Musk, needs to be able to disable Tesla cars, so he needs to be able to have enough money to be able to do other things. So he's not going to charge you $5 to launch it. But what they typically do with these is they put a bunch of them into something that's a container type sized environment, and then off they go, sent off into space on a rocket, and then the container is designed at a certain time to spring load open and the satellites get scattered out from that spring load. So essentially, you're not just saying, can you please take my one CubeSat up? It's taking up 50 CubeSats or 100 CubeSats, whatever fit into the container-sized environment.
Right.
So obviously that reduces the cost per CubeSat. They are typically designed to burn up after a period of time. So they're not trying to stay in orbit.
Because space junk is an issue. And one thing I thought is when we thought, can you put heaps and heaps more of these CubeSats up there, that creates a major problem with space junk. And space junk is quite deadly for anyone who's trying to break through an orbit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So having these spin around there and get on the road, again, lots of them, they're only small, but if you're going past there on your way to the moon...
Travelling at 30,000 kilometres an hour, every one of them is a very, very high-energy bullet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the irony here was that some of the first CubeSats that have been used have been launched to study space debris. So I thought there was some irony there that we're launching more space debris to study space debris. Other ones have been launched already to study exoplanets, so you get out of our environment to start studying exoplanets. So I thought that was quite good. So... overall, I just can see people talking about lots of different things they might want to do and how can we do it? Well, we do it with these little CubeSats. I'm not sure exactly how long they stay in orbit before they finally descend and then burn up. But again, you're not going to get anything on the ground because they will burn up on re-entry. They're small and they don't even try and pretend to have
Sorry, how large did you say they were?
They're 500 grams to maybe 2 kilograms.
Yeah,
so
we're talking about like it's something the size of a tennis ball or whatever.
Well, mate, I was thinking more like a milk carton. So something
milk carton, yeah,
something that sort of size. The new measurement in volume for CubeSats.
but if you're thinking about how much space there is there, there's a lot of empty space still around these things. So
there are, but they don't try and pretend to say we're going to put this up and leave it there forever and it'll keep itself readjusting itself in orbit. They basically get put into orbit and then they just slowly descend. And then
only
they eventually
paid pocket
burn up.
money for them, only $16,000.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah.
And it's done its job within that time frame and then it comes back. So what this means for average punters like you and I is that we'll see more experience, more information, more things happening in space because it's now a lot cheaper to build, a lot cheaper to launch, and then we'll get that extra information we might get from that. So I can see lots of interesting little things happening. I can see university researchers out there right now basically saying, what else can we do? What else can we research? Is there some asteroid that's going to come and hit the Earth in 20 years' time? Can we get out there and research it with this a bit better? So what can we do with this and monitor a whole range of things? So I think quite a fascinating solution.
Personal entertainment during long flights gets a Bluetoothing boost with an inexpensive adapter. The new must-have for frequent travellers allows for wireless connectivity into the in-flight entertainment. You say that again? The in-flight entertainment. Matt, October is a reasonable time to start our Christmas wish list, isn't it?
Oh, no, not already. Please. So I don't normally talk about specific products, but this one was pretty cool, I thought, so it kind of grabbed my eye. When I'm on a plane, I do have some noise-cancelling headphones that I use, but on a plane I plug in, I normally would use Bluetooth, plug in a lead, and then I've got to have the little 2-to-1 adapter because on the plane they've got the 2 prongs, so I plug that in, which sticks out a bit, and then when the person beside me gets out to go to the toilet, they sometimes brush past that and maybe bend the pins on that. So always travel with a spare because that's a bit of a pain if you're halfway through a flight and it gets bent. So it's a bit clumsy. And then sometimes you might forget, you get up to go to the toilet yourself and you've got these leads hanging off there and you go, oh, it jerks your neck there. So all of those problems sound like first world problems, and they are. But I saw this little adapter and I thought, this is pretty cool. So it's called the AirFly Pro Bluetooth adapter. Inexpensive, $50 basically. And you plug that in to the same socket where your headphones would plug into, but then it just dangles on a nice loose lead below that. Someone bumps it, it'll just flap about a bit. It's not going to do any harm.
Yeah, all right.
But it then uses Bluetooth to transmit to your headphones. Low power, obviously, so you're not transmitting to the entire plane. You don't need to do that. But if you do get up and want to go to the toilet, it doesn't matter if you forget to unplug anything because there's nothing to unplug. You're using normal Bluetooth as you normally would with your headphones. You might drop out of range by the time you go down to the toilet. Then when you come back, it's back in range. It keeps working. So I just thought it was a good solution to a problem that we didn't really know we had.
No, I reckon anything where you're wired into it, particularly with headphones, it's just it's a pain in the neck.
It is. It's absolutely right. And so I saw this and I went, that's someone who's just said, you know what, we could do this and this and this, and that would make our lives just that little bit better. Let's go and do that. And so something that I can't see people out there that have been screaming out for this, but now that it's there, they'll go, oh, actually, I don't mind that idea.
And for Matt's kids, they've now got another Christmas present.
That's right, another.
So you can get 3 or 4 of these at least.
Well, I hope so, because then I could use one for each day of the week. Maybe I need a few more.
When you accidentally leave it plugged in the plane and you walk off the plane.
Well, that's the other problem you could do. Obviously, you could leave it there and go, lucky my kids bought me a few for Christmas.
I believe that the old saying goes, one man's trash is another man's Aston Martin, or something like that. Anyway, if your next Aston Martin feels a little bit lighter than the previous models, it's because it's probably been made from old soft drink cans. Matt, Aston Martins now come in recycled aluminium flavour.
Let's hope they've taken off all the signage off the aluminium can. Might be an interesting Aston Martin.
Sponsored by Coca-Cola.
There's a couple of things about this. One of the things, obviously, yes, we are using recycled aluminium to make things like cars. Fantastic. And that just means we've got to drink more soft drinks. I'm not sure if that's how it works, but probably at some stage we'll be able to get the stage where there won't be enough recycled aluminium. We'll have to keep mining it. But I think if we can use some of that recycled aluminium to start with, fantastic. But the main thing they've been doing with this is they've said to AI, they've given AI the challenge. We need this to be made out of recycled aluminium. Fantastic. But we want to reduce the weight of this vehicle by about 30%. Now, humans keep trying to improve car designs. They want to make sure it's still got the strength and rigidity, still handles as well, but obviously reduce the weight is a good thing. And some car manufacturers will make certain body panels out of aluminium because it's lighter and they don't need that body panel to have structural strength, so that makes sense. But the challenge here is to say we want this to have the same strength and rigidity, but we want to use less materials, recycled materials, and make it lighter. But obviously, we don't want to compromise on the car. Now, there's a fine line there. What strength? Yeah, what strength do you need for that car to behave as you would expect, and how much can we take off without making the car not as good a car? And that's a problem that we always deal with from a human engineering perspective, but AI does this a whole lot better. So this is all done with a program called the Pivot Program, and basically there's a number of different manufacturers that are feeding into this Pivot Program to try and get AI to design a better car. Now, the first thing I thought of, we've mentioned it before, is the Homer Simpson car. So, so you say to Homer Simpson, whose brother in the episode owned a car manufacturing organisation, design a car that's got everything you want, and he does that, and it's the most hideous.
We all love the moment when the curtain goes up.
That's right. The most hideous car, but it had everything that Homer wanted. And I thought of that when I thought of AI going, sure, you want a car with less weight but still does the job. Here's the car that I've designed. You go, what's it going to look like? What's it going to do? I'm sure they won't launch it without having looked at it before. They won't unveil the curtain before they've looked at it. But the concept is quite good. Let's see. People are scared about AI. Let's see how we can use AI to make our world a better place. And if we can reduce the weight of cars, we talked last week about reducing the weight of EVs by using some of the body panels as part of the battery. This is another way to reduce the weight of cars by letting AI come up with that correct mix of weight and functionality, and if it can do that, then happy days for all cars, ICE vehicles and EVs as well.
And you've got to be able to fit a rocket launcher in there as well for James Bond, some oil slicks and all that sort of stuff.
Well, if you've got 30% less weight, then you've got weight for your oil slick device and your various things. I prefer what was the cartoon that used to be the racing cartoon where the guys used to have the
wacky races.
Wacky races, thank you. The wacky races, when the little bit used to come out the side of the wheel, the little spike would come out. I'm sure someone designing James Bond gadgets looked at wacky races at some stage and said, oh, I like that little one that comes out the side of the wheel.
Now, smart TVs have been a revelation in home entertainment and vastly changed how television is consumed. You may have noticed that your own smart TV loves to advertise TV shows and movies for your viewing pleasure on the home screen. Well, you're probably not surprised to hear that those recommendations aren't random or generic for everybody. Matt, my smart TV is watching what I'm watching, and it's not because it's trying to kill off boredom too for itself. Some
researchers from the University of California suspected there something going on. So they went and did something about it, and they put a data collection device, a sniffer if you like, between their TV and their internet connection.
They didn't go and ask the makers of the smart TV.
Well, they've done that as well, and surprise, surprise, the LG and Samsung were the two they did it with. LG said, no, of course not, and Samsung said nothing. So they didn't get the answer they expected. So step
didn't get
two...
the email.
No, that's right. Step two was, let's actually put a sniffer on information that's going up to the internet, not information coming down, our streaming services, etc. Let's look at the information going up. And they found there were snapshots of what was on the screen going up, being uploaded. So presumably, without any confirmation from LG or Samsung, LG and Samsung are sitting back going, I know what James is watching because I've got a snapshot of his screen every half a second or so. It might vary. Maybe it's every minute, maybe it's every 30 seconds. But if you remember back, well, before you and I were doing anything along these lines, but there used to be the Nielsen TV ratings, and there used to be people who were issued the Nielsen books, and they had to write down in that book what they were doing or what they were watching on their show every half an hour, whatever it was, maybe every 15 minutes, I'm not sure. And that was how they got the TV ratings. They'd send in those books and they'd get all that. So a long time ago, that was the case. Now, again, what a basic system to use based on random sampling of certain people and having to fill all that in. How clumsy is that? Whereas now, LG and Samsung have said, well, we've got a system much better. We know what's on that screen every 30 seconds, sorry, every half a second or every 30 seconds, whatever it might be, so they can see exactly what's being watched. Now, when they did
So they know I'm a channel flicker.
They know you're a channel flicker and how long you're staying on each channel. What an incredible amount of data they would have on what you're doing on your TV. Now, part of the issue here was that it's not just when it's got something that's displayed free to air or streaming service, but if you come along with your notebook and you plug in your notebook to the HDMI port and watch some family photos, family videos, whatever it might be, that's also taking those screenshots and sending them back up to LG and Samsung so they can see everything that's happening on that TV, which again sounds incredible from a data collection perspective, but then you start to think, well, what other data are they collecting? And definitely they would collect everything that you put on that TV.
Goodness me.
So it sounds quite fascinating. It sounds like a really good way for those companies to say to various streaming services, look at all this data we've got. We can tell you exactly what the ratings are. We can tell you what the ratings are almost instantaneously. We can tell you what people are watching right now. We can tell you when a show comes on that people turn off 5 minutes later because it was terrible or they get compelled to watch it. There's the famous old story when Doug Mulray had a TV show and it was back in the Channel 9 owned by Kerry Packer days.
Show.
That's right. And he had a show and Kerry Packer had the button installed at his house and he basically could hit the button to say, can that show? So he had that much control over Channel 9 that he can say, take this guy off the air and suddenly another show came on. So he based that on his watching of it and going, this is a terrible show. But you could just have all that information coming through and telling you live, real time, what people are watching. Now, if LG and Samsung are doing it, who knows who else is doing it? Who knows what information is being gathered into some central repository? What an incredible amount of information for those people that are paranoid about Chinese-owned EVs, then, wow, paranoia levels just went to a whole other level.
That's right. That's our third paranoia story for the day. We better just pull back. Gone are the days when it was enough for a museum curator to just pull out the old stuff on display and just put a please don't touch sign on it as a set and forget tourist attraction. The modern museum needs to be interactive and as hands-on as practically possible. And no museum on the planet could possibly be as interactive as the Nintendo Museum in Kyoto. Matt, get me a plane ticket. I'm going to start collecting my 20-cent coins right now.
I do think that Japanese people do love their museums, and I've been to several over there. In fact, there was a Pokemon, probably more Pokemon store than a museum, but I remember my son saved up all of his dollars to go to the Pokemon shop and basically spend all his money there and got a bunch of Pokemon cards written in Japanese. But it didn't matter because he got them there in Japan. I've been to a Toyota museum, the history of Toyota vehicles there, and that was quite fascinating. There were floors and floors of Toyotas there. Of course, we've got Hiroshima museum there. So Japan certainly do like to show off some of their history with their museums. But this one's different. I spoke to someone about it the other day and I said, Nintendo's just opened up a new museum. And of course they thought, well, Nintendo, gee, they haven't been around that long. So do they really have enough of a history to actually have a museum? Well, of course, Nintendo's got a 135-year history. Now, of course, people start thinking...
135?
So people start thinking about, hold on, a Nintendo console 135 years ago. What are you talking about? What have you been drinking?
Made of wood.
That's right. So Nintendo started off as a playing card company. Right. So that was back in 1889. So they've obviously developed. And what I do like about companies that have been around for so long is they have to keep changing. They have to keep morphing. They can't be a playing card company forever. Maybe that's not what the community wants. Who knew in 1889 that they would one day be a major player in consoles? Because consoles didn't exist. In fact, electricity, fact, batteries, like all sorts of things were really not something you'd think about in some sort of console. But we've moved on from there.
Well, I reckon you could still deck out a pretty big building just with their electronic devices.
You're probably right. But it does go back as far as playing cards and then through their various electronic devices. But one of the things that I absolutely loved, the ticketing to this process is gamified. So when you buy a ticket, you get 10 virtual coins. And those virtual coins allow you to play interactively with some of the attractions, but only 10. So if you go back again tomorrow, you'll get a different set of randomised 10 virtual coins. So if you want to play with all the different exhibits, all the different interactive exhibits, you have to go back a few times, which is very clever marketing to keep bringing you back to see which virtual coins you got. Oh, and I've already played this one. I don't want this one. Sorry, this is the virtual coins you've got this time.
So what you're telling me is my box of 20-cent pieces are going to be useless.
They're going to be useless. You're going to have virtual coins. They're going to be very generous and they're going to give you those 10 coins after you pay to go into the place, but you're then going to have to go back time and time again to
go
play
out for lunch,
all of them.
come back in the afternoon.
That's right. Can I have 10 more virtual coins, please?
ticket.
So I thought that was quite clever. The concept here was really just for people now, because some people might be young and playing some of the Nintendo products and not really understanding the full heritage, the full significance that Nintendo has contributed to our current gaming life. So I think well done. I'm keen to go, next time I am in Japan, I will actually try and make a point of actually going and visiting this particular museum because I do love the idea of showing off what you've got there. So it's in Kyoto for people that are interested in Japan, in Kyoto, and Kyoto is a wonderful city, a beautiful city to go to regardless, but one more reason to go to Kyoto now is the Nintendo Museum.
And that is all we have time for today, folks. This Tech Talking game has been officially clocked. Thanks for another cracking Tech Talk, Matt.
Just got to go out and get some tin foil to put over my car now to make sure that nothing's going to happen to my car.
Something that matches your hat.
That's right.
Well, that story about the Nintendo Museum's got me thinking. There's a box of stuff in the back of my garage, I reckon, with a sign on the front gate. It might just come across a license to print money there. Have kids showing up with pockets full of 20-cent coins, and you never know. On that slightly shady note, thank you for listening in on another episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. And it is important to note that under no circumstances does Matthew endorse corruption and unethical business enterprises that I may have suggested offhandedly as an editorial comment. I'm your host, James Eddy, signing off hurriedly before I say something that has me run in for fraud charges. We hope that you catch us again in next week in another freshly unwrapped episode of Tech Talk. Take care and we'll see you then.